Okay, so good afternoon. Another question. So I just want to start by saying, so I've got 6 subscribers. I think I know who 3 of them are. I don't know the 3 others. I don't think I know them anyway. So I share my videos with a handful of people I know. So we're talking about 5 people maximum. And these people, none of them are subscribed. But I don't know who the other ones. I think they're just random YouTube people. Maybe there's an analytics thing you can look at on YouTube, but I don't know how to work it. I don't know. I'm not technologically advanced enough to be able to decipher these things. But hello, people I don't know. Thanks for watching. And if you have any comments or advice or questions or whatever, then just let me know. Anyway, another thing I wanted to say is, you ever seen that episode of The Simpsons where they go to like a Buddhist monastery, Zen place, and it's all monks, and one of the monks is sitting like meditating, and Bart Simpson comes up, and the monk's like sitting there all peaceful, like what is the sound of one hand clapping? And Bart goes, "Oh, that's easy, this, look," and then starts doing some stupid clapping with his hand, and the monk gets all annoyed, and then by the end of their visit, he's just lost the plot. He's completely lost it, ruined his serenity and equanimity. It's kind of like what it's like being on this path and having kids sometimes. So anyway, yes, the question. That's me talking rubbish for like 3 minutes already. So the question: what is the initial awakening? The initial awakening, because I always talk about the initial shift, the initial awakening. So, and I realise now, I looked back at my older videos and I realised now that I didn't really explain it very well, because I was just kind of monologuing. For me, the initial awakening came from shifting my attention out of the thought process, which is identified with the person, into some object of awareness, be it whatever, in the present moment. And I don't know if this is the same for everyone, but I did that till it became a habit, and then the shift just happened. So it's kind of like an identity shift. So before the awakening, you are identified with this person, this mind body, this self. This is your main identity. People like Eckhart Tolle and Mooji are great, because they point towards this sense of being, the sense of isness, the sense of I am, the sense of awareness, consciousness. That's just always here, which pervades everything. And there's no way I'm going to be able to explain it as effectively as they can. But they point to this constantly, and they point to this because this is what's valuable to most people who are not awake yet. As you can notice it, this constant awareness, this constant sense of being, this constant existence that is you, is your true essence. And not a theory, not an idea, not a philosophy. You can experience this easily right now. Everything in life, all this form, you, your person, yourself, is laid on top of this in a sense. Is an add-on, is a construction that is based on this essentially ground of existence. This presence, this watching, this is why people explain it as the watcher, the silent witness. This awareness, this consciousness that's always there, that's unaffected, indifferent, neutral, is there before you were born and it will be there after you die. I mean, you can discern that through logic, if that helps, but it's not in logic. The more you have these experiences, I had these experiences, right, where it's mainly when the mind was quiet, and you have these little mini realizations where you you experience this strongly, this sense of I am, I exist, being isness. You experience that as being there, and it's very subtle, and it is more subtle when you're identified with self, because the predominant protagonist in your experience is the self, but it comes through every now and again, and meditation and stuff is techniques to thin that self to the point where where this isness comes through, and then once you taste that flavour, once you experience that, then that's if you've not experienced that before, I think everyone has, but maybe they didn't notice. Once you experience that consciously, then okay, yes, you got it, focus on that, see how you can get there and experience life from that perspective, comprehend this experience from that perspective, because that is you. And having that experience isn't a shift in isn't a realization. The realization is permanent. The shift is permanent. Before there's doubt from the person continues to try and grasp for attention. And these experiences will happen more frequently. The silence there, the stillness, the silence gets louder and louder. The isness becomes more obvious. And then it gets to a point where one outweighs the other, and then the shift happens, and the evidence is too overwhelming, and definitely not as in a sense of the mind knows logically, you experience definitively and permanently that what you are, your, let's say, true self, which isn't a person, isn't a human, isn't anything. What it is some form of godlike shapeshifter that manifests everything. That's what it kind of seems like, and that's you. And then all the experiences of the person, all the ups and downs of the person will still go on. The person still functions, obviously, because this form goes on, but these waves happen. But instead of being identified with these waves, you're now this constant here that transcends the waves. That's how you experience life, in a sense. It's like a profound shift in identity. And then from there you can begin to deepen that realization, and the subsequent journey is just a natural unfoldment of that initial realization. I don't know if I've explained this very well, but initially it's very subtle, and if you could just notice that, and it's being attentive, being aware, and being able to direct your attention and noticing that, because it, like I said, it's so subtle. It goes on, it's there all the time, but it's overlooked. It's always there. And like I said, Luke Moodgey, Eckhart Tolle, they're probably the two most kind of popular and people who are very good at explaining this, and that's all they talk about mostly. And everyone knows them. I think if you're watching this video, you've seen their video, you've seen them. So, like I said in the previous video, they have this sense of peace that like emanates from them. That is that people can obviously see, and they're like, oh, okay, there's something to this, and then they can feel it within themselves. Sorry. My mind's just gone. It's gone. It's gone. What was I talking about? Sorry, my mind goes blank sometimes. It's like I've practiced. It's like a habit now. I've practiced. The mind just kind of switches off sometimes, and it's more easy to just drop into a thoughtlessness than it is to continue thinking, which can have its disadvantages depending on what you're doing. So the object, the way in that you can use, I mean, you can use the breath is a common one, sound, vision, feeling in the body. You're shifting your awareness to something that exists in this reality. Even thought. I don't recommend that because thought's a tricky one. Maybe later on, but something that you're looking for, something that kind of moves the thought out of the road, lets you see, not move the thought out of the road, you're not getting rid of it, you're seeing through it. The thoughts are there, they're dense, all you can see is thought, but then they become transparent, and then you can see right through them, and the thought is not the object of attention anymore. I don't know where this explanation comes from, but clouds in the sky, you're looking at the sky is your vast awareness. The clouds that come across, you can see them, but you're still aware of the sky. That's what I think people kind of explain that in a way that doesn't make sense. Like, I think the way I explained it there is the way that makes sense. You're aware of the sky. Clouds pass, you're aware of the sky. You're not only looking at the clouds. Again, I'm not great at explaining this. I don't think, that's why I said I'm good with language, but I'm not, because I don't have a lot of experience at explaining this, and maybe my explanations might not click with some people, which is why I recommend look at YouTube, the I Am Isness Being, and there will be tons of teachers. I'll just stick with the two I recommended now because they're easy to find, but there are tons of teachers talking about this. That, you're getting in touch with that, because that is you. That is you, and it's always there in the background, and it becomes more and more apparent. And initially I had this, there were some really weird things that happened to me on the lead up to this, right? And I think these are just side effects of the shift, some really weird things, and I'm not going to talk about them because they're so weird that if I say this, it might potentially devalue a lot of the things I'm talking about, and they're personal to me. So some very, very weird things that make you question the nature of reality, and I think that kind of culminated. But see, one of these things was this. I'm gonna say, in her voice that wasn't speaking in words. Yeah, I know, weird. It was like a memory, and that this pulled towards this, and it was like this inner voice was some part of me that was speaking to me from before this lifetime. Sorry, if this is too weird, just like ignore what I'm saying. But if anyone can relate, and like I said, these memories from childhood were suddenly like time was flattened out into this moment, and all these memories were pulled into this moment, and I recognised this flavour of this witness that was communicating to the person, saying, look, remember, look, remember. It wasn't in words, but that's the gist of it. Look, remember, pay attention, remember. And then when it clicked, that so it was this kind of pull towards this, and it becomes more and more strong the closer you get, the person gets. And if anyone's watching this video, then you also have this pull, and that's how you know the awakening process has begun, and it's happening. It's just happening in my experience. It's just happening. You can just do things to speed it up. But then it clicked, and then it was a sense of, it wasn't in words, that it was like, if it was a thought or a narrative, it would say something like, I would say something like, yes, I remember, of course I remember. And then this massive sense of, what was that all about? What was that all about? Okay, I remember, right, obviously I remember. What was that all about? By that I mean this identification with this form, and it just becomes so obvious, and you're like, yeah, it's like that's why they got waking up. It's like waking up from a dream. You wake up from a dream and you're like, oh it's just a dream. I was so invested in that. That was really something, but I'm glad it's not, it's just a dream. It's the exact same thing. That's what it feels like. And you just know, like, when you wake up from a dream, you're not still invested, you're not still thinking, oh, in that dream I was doing this, oh, I need to go to sleep again so that I can continue doing this and fix this in this dream. I've actually talking about that, I've actually done that before. I've actually thought like that before. Is that mad? Probably. Anyway, getting sidetracked. Yeah, so you're not going to do that. Once you wake up, you're awake. That's it. And you can the thing about this is that once that's happened, right, the suffering can become worse. Because once you've taken that step out of this, it becomes scary, because you realise that this is just, in a sense, this is just a dream. And you can see how that's terrifying, because all these things that you've invested your life in, and all these emotional attachments that you have are still there. They're still there. Well, in my experience, they become worse, and that's the dark night of the soul. Dealing with this, really dealing with the attachments without just avoiding them. When you see clearly, then you can really start dealing with the attachments and detaching from that process. At least letting go is the hard part. But I think you can't do that unless you're forced to do that by having the awakening and having the clear sight. Otherwise, you're going to choose to go back to what is comfortable. These false ways of dealing with these attachments that we've developed as coping mechanisms are there because they help us deal with this, and that's where this becomes. It can become dangerous, I think, if you have some. So this is where things like counselling or psychotherapy or whatever can become helpful, because I can see how if you have that shift, it can really hit you hard, and if it happens quickly and you're not quite able to cope with it in that sense. See, this is what some people don't talk about, right? It can cause you suffering. It can cause a lot of problems. It's not all just serenity, peace, and light, and equanimity, and all that stuff. Is a process to this. in my experience anyway, like, maybe it's not the same for other people, but you know when Neo wakes up from the Matrix and they unplug him and he has a weird kind of existential crisis and then throws up and all that. It's kind of like that, because he was so used to being in the Matrix, as a wee illustration there. And then that's when, but that is just the self going wild and grasping and trying and fighting to keep hold of. That's the identification, just grasping at you, trying to pull you back into. But once it knows it can't do that, then it releases all the emotions and stuff like that, and they have to go through you. They have to go through the body. They're all kind of in here in the body. Have I put you off yet? But you go through it. You go through it, and it's just part of the side effects of the self, side effects of the person, side effects of that letting go of the person. It's just part of it. It's just part of it, and you go through it, and it can be scary, it can be painful, but it just has to be done. It has to be done. But then these ups and downs, these things, the suffering, it doesn't touch you the same. It doesn't move you in a profound way. It doesn't. It's not like you're indifferent. It's not like you're just emotionally detached. It's like the clear sight allows this perspective that you can appreciation, I would say, is a good word. You can appreciate everything, and it's like the difference between sympathy and empathy. Like the empathy's still there, but it's not sympathy. You're not invested in the emotional ups and downs of the person or other people. If that makes sense. Anyway, that's already 20 minutes, so that'll do for now.